Morning students, welcome back to computer science classes of class 12. Today we are going to learn about network protocols. This is a part of computer network unit. So under network protocols we will be learning TCPIP, FTP, HTTP and PPP. So starting with protocols. Protocol is a set of rules that governs the communication of messages or information from one network to another. So, we can have a number of examples of protocols like TCPIP, SMTP, POP3, HTTP, HTTPS, or some remote login or file transfer protocols like SSH, FTP, SFTP, SCP, Telnet, SMTP. Okay, so let us start the different protocols one by one. We'll start with TCP/IP address. Before learning any of the protocols, we should know what is IP address. Like you have got your particular address of home, right? All of us, we have our particular address. Now, with which anyone can identify our location. In the same way, every device which is connected to the internet has got its IP address, and that IP address is of 32-bit binary. Now, what is this binary? In class 11, we must have done the binary conversions. We know 0 and 1. We know how to convert the decimal numbers to binary numbers. So, that 32-bit binary usually represented as 4 decimal values and each representing 8 bits. So that is ranging from 0 to 255. That is, we call it as octets, right? So these are separated with a dot. Like this, you can have an example 140.179.220.200. So this is an example of IP address in the octet form. I hope the IP address is clear to you all. Now, starting with TCP/IP. This is a protocol which is a standard one. It stands for Transmission Control Protocol or Internet Protocol. This protocol combines two different protocols for its proper working. Let us further understand what is this TCP. TCP actually defines how applications can create channels or establish communication across network, means one network to another. Whereas the IP, it defines how to address and route each packet so that it reaches to its proper correct destination. And moreover, this IP protocol gives particular or specific IP address to each data packet. So this is very important to have TCP/IP in our communication. Let us have some more points on TCP/IP. This TCP/IP uses client-server mode. I guess all of you know us that what is client-server. Let me again explain. Client-server architecture or network is nothing but where we have got a server which is connected to all the clients, all the computers, all other devices like this. So that server acts as a hub in between. Okay. And rest of the connected devices acts as a client. So this is client server mode. So whenever a computer, that is a client, makes a request, the server provides that requested service such as sending a web page or something like that. The next point is it specifically has a point to point transmission of data. Why we are calling it as point to point transmission of data? Because when we are saying it is client server mode, that means this from here to here it is point to point, from here to here point to point. There is no broadcasting. Getting it? It's not that key. So the server is just sending all the messages to everyone, and then it depends upon the destination person or the receiver whether to take it or not. It's not like that. Okay, the communication is from one computer in the network to another computer, the specific one. I hope this is clear to you all. Now, why this TCPIP or some high applications are called stateless? What do you mean by this stateless word? Let us understand in some brief manner. So each client, as we know, this TCPIP is working in client server mode. We have understood what is client server architecture. So each client request is considered a new request, which is not at all related to the previous one. Okay, so till the time complete message or all the packets in a message have been delivered, the connection between two computers are not disconnected. Okay, so when the whole transmission is done, then the path is made available, means the connection is disconnected. So unlike an ordinary phone conversation like we do in our phone conversation, what we do, we first establish a proper connection from one mobile to another, and then our conversation starts, and till the conversation lasts, the connection also lasts. So this makes that we have to have a particular connection. But in this TCP/IP, even if till the time the whole message or all the packets in the message have been delivered, the connection between the two computers remain intact, but after the transmission path is available freely. So unlike ordinary phone conversation that require a dedicated connection for the entire call duration, no dedicated connection is required over here. So like your phone call, we require a particular dedicated connection, but in TCP/IP that is not required, and that's why the network paths are freely available for everyone to use. I hope you have understood why we are calling it as stateless. Now moving to FTP, File Transfer Protocol. It is commonly used as transferring files over any type of network, and it also supports TCP/IP. Okay, it is also based on client server mode. So let us understand what is this FTP client and FTP server. Now here, any computer which is having FTP server software in it, and it listens to the network for getting the requests from other computers or the other clients, that is your FTP server. And whereas FTP client, it has the FTP client server, and it initiates the establishment of connection to the server, means it sends the request that I have to be connected with you. So once the connection is done, and after that only any uploading or downloading can be done. Now, when we are saying uploading and downloading, let us understand what is this uploading and downloading. Uploading files is nothing but transferring of files or images or text from your computer to the server. That is your uploading files. Like we say that this is not getting uploaded, or I'm trying to upload it in YouTube, or I'm trying to upload it in WhatsApp. So those are uploading. You are just transferring your files to that server over the net, right? And when we are saying downloading, we normally do it like just copying some information from the internet and just keep it in our computer. So that is nothing but downloading of files. So for these things we generally use FTP as protocol. Now after that we have got HTTP. HTTP is hypertext transfer protocol. The protocol which is used for transferring of hypertext like your graphics, images, sound, video from one computer to another, and it is particularly used on World Wide Web. So again, it is also based on TCPIP. So can you understand that TCPIP is actually the base of any type of network almost, and the HTTP is also based on client-server mode. So we have seen TCP/IP, we have seen FTP. Now we are learning HTTP. Now let us see how this HTTP works. At first, the communication between the host and the client occurs through request and response pair. Now what is this request and response? It is nothing but like we have studied in your clients this FTP, like the FTP client and FTP server, how they are working. FTP client is sending a request for the connection, and FTP server is accepting that request from the network or listening to the network, then accepts the request and make the connection. That is the request and response pair. In the same way, HTTP is also working. Now, when the connection is established between the two computers, then the client, that is actually the browser, we know what is a web client, right? So that initiates the request, and the server that responds the request, that I have already discussed. So when after that HTTP identifies the resource that the client has requested from and informs the server about the action to be taken. So this is very important. HTTP is actually identifying the resource that the client has requested and then informs the server about whatever action it has to take. When the user clicks on the hyperlink, then the client program on their computer uses HTTP to contact the server. So here the role of HTTP is very important. Whenever we are clicking to any of the hyperlink or hypertext, all of you know what is hypertext. Hypertext is nothing but a text with which one page or one web page is connected to another, or one document is connected to another. So when we are clicking those text or images, then the client program on that computer uses HTTP to send the request and identify the resource and ask the server to respond with an action. So this whole thing is done with HTTP. The server accepts the request and then uses HTTP to respond to perform the action. Server is again accepting the request, and for responding, again it is using HTTP. So client is also using HTTP for sending the request, and then HTTP is telling the server that this is the resource from where you're getting the request, please perform according to it. And then when the server is accepting it, then the server is again using HTTP to respond it. So these are the three basic points you have to keep in mind. Now let us understand the three different features, very important features of HTTP. First, it is connectionless. Why we are calling it as connectionless? Because whenever a request is made, the moment the client is making a request, it gets connected. Then wait for the server to respond. To process this request, the server has to re-establish the connection with the client. So that's why we are calling it as connectionless. When the client, that is the web client, the browser, is actually making a request for having some information or for getting some information, then HTTP is actually being used, right? So after just making or initiating the connection, it gets disconnected. When the server gets that information that someone has requested for connection, then the server again re-establish the connection. So the client is not waiting, just making that connection and just waiting, okay, when the server will send me and then I'll work. Till then I'll just make the connection. It's not like that. That's why it's calling us, we are calling it as connectionless. Next, media independent. Why we are calling it as media independent? Because any type of data can be sent by HTTP. It does not does not be very particular that it can only send the video or only the audio files, like that. Okay, it can handle any type of data content. Now, why we are calling it as stateless? We have just understood the stateless in your TCPIP. Let us again understand in HTTP. We are calling it as stateless because the server and the client are aware of each other only during a request. It's not that it is a lifetime conversation. And the moment this response and request pair over, they get disconnected. So, neither the client nor the browser can retain information about different requests across the web pages. So, they cannot gather any information. Every time a request is a new request, there is no relation between one request to the previous one. That's why we are calling it as stateless. Now let us see what is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. Nowadays HTTPS is very important over HTTP. HTTP we have just understood, it is hypertext transfer protocol, and lot of features of it, how it works and all. So basically we can say it handles the communication between a web server and a web browser. Web browser is nothing but the client, your web client. Whereas HTTPS, we call it as HTTP, the hypertext transfer protocol, secure. Why we are calling it as secure? Because it handles the communication in a secure one. So it is secure communication. You would see nowadays whenever we get a URL, if it is HTTPS, then you have to think that that URL is very secure for doing any type of transactions. Now the next one, we have got point-to-point protocol. Since we are working on the client server mode and we have seen that they work on point-to-point communication. Now what is this point-to-point protocol? So it is used for communication between two particular computers using a serial interface. Basically, a personal computer connected via phone line to the server. It is sometimes considered as a member of TCPIP protocols. And very importantly, it encapsulates and packages our computer's TCPIP packets into point-to-point frames and then forwards them to the server of serial transmission lines such as telephone lines and ISDN. So in other words, you can say the point-to-point protocol just makes sure whatever is needed, that is only been sent. The extra work is not highlighted, or you can say they just make sure the information that is to be sent to be in packets and then forwarded to the server through the cable wires or the wireless connections, the ISDNs. This point-to-point protocol also defines the particular area to be exchanged between devices through one link or multiple links, and also checks whether the devices are authenticate or not. So this is very important. The authenticity of the two devices are checked with the help of this point-to-point protocol. And one more feature of point-to-point protocol is it supports very authentication schemes like password authentication protocol or handshake protocol. Now, what is this password authentication protocol? We would have seen when we give any information or some login credentials, we get one OTP. So, this is again a type of password authentication protocol. Whereas, the next one where we have handshake authentication protocol. Handshake authentication protocol is nothing but, suppose, I'll just give you an example. Suppose A is a point and B is a point. Basically, there are two networks or two computers of different network. So, when A is sending an information to B, A will wait till B sends an acknowledgement, ACK. And if it does not wait, and B, if does not gets the information, then it will send a NAK, NAK, that is not acknowledged. So this process is nothing but handshake. Like they are making sure whether they have got the information or not. If it is getting it, if the next computer or the node is getting the information, then it is sending the information as acknowledgement as they have got it, and if it is not getting, then also they are sending it as NAK, that is the not acknowledged. So this is the process of handshake authentication protocol. With this, we are ending with our session today. In the next sessions, we will be learning the email protocols and some more protocols. I hope today's session was enjoying and fruitful. Stay tuned for the upcoming videos. Thank you.